this video, we're talking about how to simplify complex fractions. More specifically, a fraction where both the numerator and the denominator are themselves fractions. So in this first example, we have the fraction 3/5 divided by the fraction 2/3. So how are we going to simplify this? Well, remember that whenever you multiply a fraction by its reciprocal, the answer is going to be 1. In other words, if you have a over b and you multiply it by b over a, in other words, you flip it upside down and you multiply, then you multiply across the numerator, so you do a times b, you get ab. You multiply across the denominators, you get b times a, which is the same as ab. And ab over ab is just going to be 1. So multiplying by the reciprocal is always going to give you 1, which means that one way we can simplify a fraction over a fraction is to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the denominator's reciprocal. So we have 2/3 here in the denominator. If we multiply by 3/2, we flip that fraction upside down to get the reciprocal, and then we multiply up here by the same thing, 3/2, so that we don't change the value of the fraction. In the denominator, that's going to give us 6/6, or just 1. So we're going to get 1 in the denominator, which will allow us to simplify this fraction. In the numerator, we're still going to have 3/5 times 3/2. When we simplify 3/5 times 3/2, we're going to multiply across the numerator, so 3 times 3 gives us 9. Across the denominators, 5 times 2 gives us 10. So the answer is just going to be 9/10, because we would get 9/10 over 1, which is still just 9/10. So what we need to realize here is that multiplying by the denominator's reciprocal will always give us 1 in the denominator. So it's really almost unnecessary to multiply the denominator by its reciprocal, because this will turn into 1 and it'll just sort of disappear, and we'll just end up with what we have in the numerator, which means that all we really have to do is multiply the numerator by the denominator's reciprocal in order to simplify a fraction over a fraction. So let's look at a second example where we do that. Here we have 25 2/3 divided by 100. In other words, we have a mixed number in the numerator and a whole number in our denominator. So we need to turn this mixed number into an improper fraction. And remember, we do that by taking the denominator of 3, multiplying it by the whole number, so 3 times 25 is 75. And then to that result, we add the numerator, so 75 plus 2 gives us 77. And we take our result, 77, and put it over the original denominator. So this is going to become 77/3 all divided by 100. Now keep in mind that 100, whenever we have a whole number like this, it's really just implied that it's over 1. So 100 is the same thing as 100 over 1. Now we have a fraction divided by a fraction, just like we did in our first example. So we could multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the denominator's reciprocal, 1 over 100. But as we know from our first example, the denominator is just going to disappear. So all we really need to do is multiply the numerator by the denominator's reciprocal. So we took the denominator, flipped it upside down to get 1 over 100 instead of 100 over 1, and this is going to go away. We know that's just going to become 1. So now all we have to do is this problem. And multiplying across our numerators, 77 times 1 gives us 77. And across our denominators, 3 times 100 gives us 300. And our final answer is 77 over 300. We always have to check to make sure that we can't reduce our fraction, that our fraction is irreducible. And there's no common factor between 77 and 300 other than 1, so we know this fraction is in lowest terms. Same thing here with 9 over 10. We can't reduce this fraction at all, so we know we have our final answer. Let's look at one more example where we have a whole number in the numerator and we have a mixed number in the denominator. So we have 15 divided by 7.5. Well, we need to convert this 7.5 mixed number to an improper fraction. We do that by saying 2 times 7 is 14. 14 plus 1 is 15. So we're going to get 15 over 2. So this is going to be 15 over 15/2. Now we just want to take our numerator, which is 15, and we want to multiply it by the denominator's reciprocal. So the denominator is 15/2, which means its reciprocal would be 2/15. So we want to multiply by 2 over 15. When we do that, we need to remember that this 15 is the same as 15 over 1. Now we can simplify. We can cancel a 15 from the numerator and denominator, and we just get 1 and 1. So now we multiply across our numerators. 1 times 2 is going to be 2. 1 times 1 is going to be 1. And 2 over 1 is just 2. So this whole thing, 15 over 7.5, simplifies to just 2.